Hey guys, Nick in the States here. Just wanted to do a quick little video kind of showing the difference between the Chibson I recently got from AliExpress and my Gibson Les Paul Traditional Plus. And also I've got a 50s or a 60s tribute gold top studio from 2011 that kind of just give you an idea of both, the shape, how they look kind of side by side, some of the differences that you got there. You don't see a lot of the videos where you really have it kind of head to head with the real deal. So let's get started. So first I'll show you this guy. This was supposed to be a give an idea of the top. Hopefully it comes through there. See a nice bit of flame to it. It's actually got a little bit of curly flame. It's not your kind of standard Epiphone flame tops are very much like pencil thin, completely straight waves. Where this has more of a a mix and match to the pattern, which I tend to prefer. You kind of see that in the old ones. Good features of this one. It's a one-piece body, so if you look at the end, it's not a veneer on the back. I don't know if you can actually kind of see there, but it's actually one-piece mahogany body, one-piece neck with no scarf joint, which if you saw the other video with the kiddos running around, when she came in, that's how she was. Came with the Chinese knockoff Grovers, the made in the USA, and the standard serial number that's probably shared with many of my brethren. Gibson logo on the headstock, which is actually a pretty good inlay job. The silk screen is very good. I swapped out the truss rod cover with a real Gibson one just because the Chinese ones all kind of look like junk. Had to reuse the screw that they fasten the bottom with because of the way they do the truss rod hole. Standard amount of frets, pretty good rosewood fretboard. The inlay job is pretty solid. No fret nibs on this one. Action, as you can kind of see, I keep mine like kind of a medium, not super low, so it's not really driving it crazy. I switched the poker chip out for a Gibson one. I have not yet found a good set of surrounds that have the cream binding but the same screw hole pattern. These have that. It's just kind of from certain angles it's a kind of yellowy white and not so much a cream. So I'd like to kind of swap that out at some point. I switched the knobs to the kind of your old-fashioned silver tops there. So that's this guy. Now let's do a little bit of the head-to-head stuff so you can kind of get a good view of it. Let's start with headstocks. As you look at both of them, one thing you see is the traditional has a little bit more, probably a little bit more present of a Les Paul silkscreen. And if you look, it's got a little better mother of pearl on the inlay, but not too much. I mean, the Gibson one looks, the Chibson one, which would be on your right, or no, on your left, sorry, on your left, my right, would look pretty good. So, looks good. So, real Gibson, Chibson. This one I have the Gibson style tuners on. There's that. But if you look at the headstocks, pretty good deal. One thing I'll point out on this one is, if you look at the logo, the G is pretty much a straight up and down, parallel to the edge of the fretboard. If you look at the edge of the G and all the vertical lines, on the Chibson, just ever so slightly, you can see that it's kind of canted in a little bit. So if you're a super stickler to stuff like that, it's a different. In a lot of the pictures, it's kind of what I see. If you look at the inlays there, you get an idea kind of the quality of the mother of pearl from the real deal. If you look at the inlays, look at the quality of the mother of pearl from the fake deal, I really can't tell the difference. When I look at the myself, looking closely at it side by side, from a workmanship and kind of fill around, the Gibson's probably a smidge better on the edges. You can see a little bit of the glue on the edge of the, just like a real minute amount on the edge of the Chibson right around how the inlays go. But very nice plain neck. I'll tell you that the two necks are very similar. The Gibson is probably a little, I guess a more of a closer, it's still like a C-shaped slim taper neck. The Gibson has a little bit more of a harder rollover edge, where the Chibson, the Chinese one, actually is a little softer, a little easier on the fingers as you come up around it. And I've been surprised at what a great player the Chibson is. I've been using it a lot lately, just noodling on the couch or playing around, chasing my kids around. and playing guitar, but it's a guitar I really like to enjoy to play. And the funny thing is, I've had this Les Paul for just about 1.5 years now, and I really don't have a ton of time on it. I probably played it 10-15 hours in that period of time. I'm mainly a living room noodler, that kind of stuff, and it doesn't beg to be played. I'm gonna probably bring it in and get a little setup. It's got a smidge lower action. That's actually no. It's pretty much spot on the same action for the Gibson as the Chibson. But I something about how this one sits and I don't know. It's weird. I guess you pick it up and you know. The point to point or something to point out, and hopefully you can see here side by side. It may not look like much, but there is definitely a 1/4 inch or so of depth difference, if I can speak. And somewhere around here I have a tape measure that if I think of it before the video is done, I'll measure them out. But it's definitely a little bit thinner. From a coloration, I mean, these two guitars are pretty much what you would call an iced burst on both. This is more, the Chibson is more of a kind of your R9 style faded out you see in the majority of what comes out of China these days. If you look at, say, the Empress site, she's got probably 25 different ones that are basically this top, and basically most of the good-looking custom orders that come out, my guitar is actually up there as one of the guitars for sale now. This was supposed to be a Beauty of the Burst Stanley model, which is actually like a washed cherry. And when I got the approval photos, she was pretty, and I really didn't push back on it. So I got it in. So I still, oh, it's awful. Now I have to wait and get another washed out cherry one. It's an addiction, folks. So she's pretty close to this. What I like about this though is it's your teardrop burst. So if you see it, you've got dark here on the upper belts and on the horn, and then it kind of gets lighter in a teardrop. Where the traditional is your edge burst, where it's kind of a consistent edge all the way around. Because the way she kind of, I don't normally like that. I'm a traditionalist. I like old school Gibsons, the way that, I don't know, I just grew up staring at them and looking. Guitars are art as much as something to play for me. I'm special that way. But this has got a burst, kind of that perimeter burst. But it was very pretty. This is when I walked into Guitar Center in Boston, looked on the wall, and they had $1,500 on the used wall, and it doesn't have a mark on it. So I didn't intend on buying a guitar that day, but it came home. It was a good deal, and got to park a little money in it for either just to enjoy or for future whatever. Next, though, it's a good time to look at the tops. So if you look at this guy, depending on the light, so like dead on, not crazy, but as you start to get some angle and some light to it, it's got a pretty consistent like AA flame pattern, but the flame is consistent top to bottom. I probably can't get a good angle. If I threw the light on, I might be able to get it. But it's a neat little top without being overly, in your face. It's also got some of those, the old maple little kind of like age lines in it. Did you see little specks through it? Which gives it a lot of character. I think it's a gorgeous top. The Chibson is definitely a nicer top, and it has more definition from more angles. I also think that the depth of the flame actually has a little dye to it, so that you can kind of get a better. It makes it pop more, which is it's interesting, right? $1,500, $300. What you do see on the Gibson, the Chibson, this guy, is you can see the line where they matched up the veneers, and from certain angles and certain lights, it pops kind of more. And for that reason, not that it really bothers me, but there's certain angles playing that you look down and you see it, and I'm a big fan of Bigsby's, so I'll be likely putting a Bigsby on this guy, which will cover that up. I'll end up having to dowel the holes because Vibramates, even though they're for Les Pauls, both Epis and Gibson standards, they don't fit on this because if you look, here's a good side by side, you can see that the stop tailpiece down from the bridge is a good ½ inch or more farther down the body. A good point of reference if you're looking is look where the knob starts on the Gibson or the Chibson, and it looks closer to the bridge than on this one, where the knob is really lined up pretty much with the tailpiece. That's because that tailpiece is down farther out, and it seems all the Chinese manufacturers kind of do it the same that way. So if you were to bolt down that Vibromate, it would be too far down the body, and the end of the Bigsby would hang off the end. So I've got some dowels. I'll fill it in. I'll give it a little coloration. Most of it gets covered by the trim anyway, but that gives you that idea. Another thing that you see on the Chibsons is sometimes the knob placement has a degree of whimsy to it. This one's really not so bad, but you can see that the lower, this tone knob right here, it's probably in or just set a little bit off. If you look at the Gibson, it's almost like a parallelogram, but that one might be pulled in just a little bit of a tinge in the corner. This one, it's pulled in kind of a bit extra in the corner. So, little details, not a biggest deal. I find that it looks like Empress, Kathy at Empress guitars. A lot of them have it in the same exact placement. When you look at Guitar Monopoly, they're a little, at least the ones that I've seen, seem to have a little bit more correct. And then I've seen some of the lesser tier ones really get crazy, where you see them twisted and leaned and going all over the place. So it's kind of varies one by one. If you're going to get approval photos, it's a good idea to take just kind of a close look to make sure that that they're just kind of in the right spot. Unless it doesn't bother you, no big deal. The thing with a Les Paul is the knobs are kind of in a crap spot anyway. If you look at a Strat, you can do a lot of volume swells with how you're playing and whatnot. Where Les Paul, you're moving your hand down over, or you're doing some more acrobatics to play with the knobs. But maybe that then makes it even more important where they are. For me, I'm more of a attack and switch position to giving my different tones out of Les Paul. I kind of stay my volume, at least in a song, my volume stays pretty static, depending. So you've got the other thing. Okay, so one more thing, the pickup surrounds. If you look at the Gibson, it's a little narrower, and if you go to the store and buy the Gibson historic plastic for it, you'll find that it won't fully cover the holes in the route on the Chibson. You also have to put in dowel or fill the holes for the existing pickup mount ring to put those in, and it won't quite fit. And to show you that, I've actually got a Bulldog guitar. Bulldog bodies they sell on eBay, they used to sell on the web, and they're a pretty good Les Paul copy. They send you unfinished, you glue the neck in, and it's kind of my home-built, home-finished, all in nitro, really a great playing little guitar. Big baseball bat, Gibson's neck, I didn't sand it down, and it's your 50s, it's not going anywhere neck. But what you'll find in this is a good example where if you look at the edge of, there you go, in the bridge pickup, you'll just see the edge of the route. These bodies are also made in China, so the routes are pretty much the same. I covered up pretty well on the neck pickup and got it perfect. But the bridge pickup, you can see kind of the little edge of the holes there. And you'll see the same thing if you try and use the Gibson historic pickup rings to make that work. So, again, might not be a big deal, but you'll also have to do new holes. And I've had a hard time finding ones that are this size, that are in the cream that'll match the Gibson hardware and just kind of look normal. So this guy's got the Gibson has, I think, I get these backwards. So I think this is the Nashville, and this is the Tune-O-Matic bridge, which has the little metal wire. The bridge that came on it rattled a lot and was really sloppy, and I had like the G string sounded like crap. I happen to have one of these in the old bin of toys. Swapped it on. This bridge plays a little bit better. For other stuff I swapped out, the neck pickup on the Chibson actually plays great. And I've heard a couple other guys with YouTube videos that are like, it's a good sounding pickup. They're labeled Epiphone. It's 2 conductor wire coming out of it. They do some kind of neat wiring, or easy wiring, with some strange connectors in there for probably just for ease of manufacture. But the neck sounded great. The bridge was just weak. It was kind of uninspired. It was kind of a limp sound. So I've got a shop called Music Around. Big shout out, and Natick, Vic over there is the manager. That's it's like a Play It Again Sports except for guitars. So it's all used guitars for the most part. You get a bunch of trade-in stuff. Some of the prices are great, and it's nice for pickups though because their pickups are cheap. So I picked up a Gibson Classic 57 Plus bridge pickup, and I wired her in there. It's a 4 conductor, so I added the loop and quick solder job in, and that pickup brought that to life, and that's really what made those lead tones kind of sing. I have it quite high up at the moment. I probably can back it off a little, but it made it a lot of fun because it's a solid body, one-piece neck. She's got all the goods. She's a little lighter. If you go for weight, she's like 3 pounds lighter than this guy. This guy's a solid, not chambered, almost 9 pounds, and this guy's in the 5.5, 6 pound range. But for you know, oh, the other thing, so binding. So Gibson's binding is a little more cream-ish all the way around. And this is definitely that still kind of that whitish, yellowish one. So it's different. You kind of notice it side by side. Without side by side, I probably wouldn't have noticed it. What else? Funny. The Gibson strap buttons on this seem absolutely determined for you to crack your guitar up. I'm trying not to bump these again. The Chibson one's actually pretty good and they'll hold the strap well. And the last thing is for control cavity covers. Here's where you flip it over and you look at it. The screws are big. They're not countersunk. It's just not as nice as the Gibson for that. The grain in the Chibson's nice. It's kind of a flat look. I'll tell you what, the grain in the back of this Gibson, while darker, is just a nice. That's probably a good angle. You just get a good look at it. Where this is, I guess it's nice too. It's just this has a little more cherry to it, I guess. So those are those two guys. They're, as I say, they're pretty close to the same guitar. My wife, when this one came in and put it on the wall, she didn't actually realize it was new. Oh, there you go. And cutaways. So sometimes you see the cutaways have a big difference. One's a little droopy or whatever. This one's really not bad. And then the upper bout, you might be able to notice that it, on the Chibson over on this side, it kind of comes out a little bit more roundish, where the Gibson kind of tapers more. If you look at the flip switch, you'll see that it kind of comes around and hugs it a little bit. Just the turn is a narrower or slightly narrower turn. But not bad. You see some ones that are like really blocky, like it's wearing shoulder pads on it, especially in like the customs. Where it's pretty good. I think that's about it though. But I wanted to share it, just a little side by side. Won't do a play video today, or maybe I will later on. But for right now, I want to get this up because I've been wanting to kind of compare the two side by side, and so share it out with you guys. Have a great one. Thanks everyone in the community for sharing all the information that everybody's done. You know, helped me not waste money when I bought this guy. But it helped me not to waste money to do this, but also hours and hours of entertainment just reading and seeing what everyone else is doing with their stuff too. So it's a fun little community. We mean no harm. It's not always stress-free, but it's a good time. The other thing, last thing, from an action, it's reasonably low, not super low, but with no fret adjustment at all, other than lowering the bridge a little bit when I swapped it. This it's been pretty good for playability. So she's a good little ride. We'll keep her, and we'll probably over the next week or so be ordering another one, and then avidly waiting and watching strange tracking numbers and whatnot. All right, long video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great one.